Hello, fellow human. Welcome to day 5 of my 30-day talk to camera challenge. For those of you who saw my last video, you are aware that I recorded day number 4, but there were some audio issues, so I had to re-record it today. So today I did 4 out of 30, and now I'm doing number 5 out of 30. And the topic for today is a talk about a travel story. Hello. I think the one that I want to talk about happened just a handful of months ago when my wife and I were on the Portuguese Camino. We flew to Porto, overnighted there just to get over some jet lag, and then set off with the plan to walk 12 days. The first 7 days were in Portugal, and then we cross over into Spain, and the last 5 days we're going to be walking in Spain. And then the plan was to go back down to Porto and go up to a winery in the Douro Valley. Specifically, this is a vineyard that grows grapes for port, which we are both fans of. And then to spend a couple days in Porto before heading home. Oh, look, there's a horse over there. So, I get the sun. So the day that I'm going to talk about is, I think, day 3, possibly, of our Camino. And I can't remember where we started, although I think I remember. And I don't remember where we finished that day, although I think I remember. But none of that is important. We spent the first part of the day walking out of a small city, cobblestone streets. I think we were up pretty early. And we found our way down to the beach, and we started walking north up the coast of Portugal. We were on the littoral route. Portuguese Camino technically has a few different routes. One is the central, and it's inland a little bit. One's the coastal, and it's near the coast. And then there's little pieces that split off of the coastal even, called the littoral. And sometimes the coastal is not the one that's actually near the water, believe it or not. But none of that matters. We were near the water. We were walking on boardwalks. And the expectation for the day was basically 100% travel along the boardwalks. And we had been walking for a few hours, and suddenly we come across some caution tape and a sign that indicated that we needed to go around. And the map on the sign showed us backtracking and going inland quite a bit, and going through a town along a road. And we weren't too keen on that. So what we decided to do, we were standing there, and a local Portuguese gentleman came up to us. And we don't speak Portuguese, and he didn't speak English. But he could see that we were a couple pilgrims that were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And he patted me on the shoulder, and he said, yes, indicating that we should walk past the sign and past the tape and continue on along the coast, along the boardwalk that was there. So we did. Our little water bottles were full, and it wasn't too long that it became evident why there was a sign redirecting us there. Clearly there had been some sort of significant erosion or perhaps a storm that had washed away the boardwalk. And so we found ourselves having to climb down, 6 feet off this boardwalk to the sand where the boardwalk stopped. It was easy enough to know which direction to go because we were just following the coast north, basically. That was the direction we had to travel. And so here we are, walking through the sand along the beach, and not even on the beach. If it was on the beach, that would have been smarter because, the sand's packed down from the water. It's much easier to walk in. I'm talking about loose sand dunes with very sparse vegetation. And so it was a real chore after a while to be taking every step through these sand dunes. And we couldn't see how far we had to go. It was the middle of September, very warm, and we drank enough water, but we hadn't anticipated having to go so far through the sand. After about, I'd say, 2 hours of trudging through these sand dunes, we finally come to boardwalk again. At least we're there repairing and rebuilding the boardwalk. And there was a couple other folks there, fellow peregrinos, who had done the same thing as us, and they were beat. And they'd taken off their shoes to knock all the sand out and rest and drink some water and all that. And we polished off our water as well, with the anticipation that there would be a fountain nearby, or at least in the near future, within a reasonable amount of time. But that didn't happen. We ended up walking probably another hour and a half on the boardwalk. Not past any towns. There were no little cafes open, no fountains to get water. And we were starting to get pretty hot and grumpy. Finally, we start approaching what is going to be the outskirts of a little village to pass through. And we see a little foot wash station, as you would find when you come up off the beach to wash your feet. And so we sat there and we took off our shoes and socks and we washed our feet and we drenched our hats and our little damp cloths or whatever to wrap around our necks and cool down. And a gentleman came over. He was Portuguese, but living in Toronto. We talked about hockey for a while. We talked about politics for a while. A really pleasant gentleman. We wished him goodbye and kept walking into the town. This is where we were going to end up staying that day. The approach through the town was hot and it hurt our feet, honestly. There's a lot of cobblestone. And we come across the municipal albergue where there's a line of folks waiting to check in. But that's not where we were staying. Although we did wish that it was where we were staying so we could stop walking. We were really tired and it had kind of been a tough day. We walked past a store and we popped in to get a large bottle of ice cold water. We quickly drank our fill, filled up our bottles, and then continued walking. We're walking through the town, and we've probably got another half hour or so to go before we reach our albergue, and we see this little stone bench under a tree. And we decided to sit down and have a snack. So we sit down, we take off our shoes and socks to let our feet air out, pull out the snack bag. We got some cashews, some M&Ms, a couple crackers, and we start eating. And we're sitting there for a while, just resting our feet, enjoying the shade, and refueling. And this old gentleman comes out from the building next to where we were sitting. And he has this little plastic bag with him. And he shuffles over next to us and he hands it to us. And we look inside and there's 2 bottles of water, an apple and a pear, and some crackers. And that was a magical moment for us because we had had a really tough day. And here's a guy who sees pilgrims all day long walking through his town. And the spirit of kindness that he extended to a couple strangers who probably looked like they were having a tough day was remarkable. It was magical. And that's the kind of experience that I don't think people should expect on the Camino, but from what I've heard and what I've seen, it is somewhat common on the Camino. That there's a shared spirit of something larger than yourself that everybody's doing. And it would have been easy for this gentleman to be upset at all the pilgrims or tourists or strangers constantly walking through his town by his place. But here he is offering kindness to people that he's never met. And I thought that was really touching. After we had our fill of water and had enough snacks in us, we continued on, checked into our albergue, which happened to be a fantastic place. It was run by a guy who had inherited it from his grandfather, who used to run it. And we had a fabulous night. So that was my little travel story about a moment of kindness on the Camino from one stranger to another. A small gesture that made a huge impact. And I think it's a lesson that I can learn to apply broadly to life. You never know what somebody's going through, and the smallest act of kindness can have a big impact. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. That's it for day 5. We'll see you tomorrow for day 6. Ciao.